Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everybody. This is Cindy with another episode of Spectrum Perspectives, and I'm here today with one of our experts at the end of this month. I brought in attorney Jane Tiboni. Hi, Jane. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Cindy. Thank you.
And you are, the name of your practice is Tiboni-Attorney. You work with your husband, right?
I do. We've been in practice for over 25 years.
Wow. Okay.
Long time.
I don't want to get off topic, but I would love to ask you how that goes, working with your husband all day, every day.
He's easy. He's easy.
Yeah. And you guys are sort of in the same field too. Like I might bring him on too, on another episode, but why don't you tell everybody what type of law you practice and what you do?
Sure. So Joe and I practice elder law and estate planning. And we concentrate in some ways on working with families with children of special needs. So Joe and I, it's a vast area of the law. So Joe and I split up the areas. He does a lot of the estate planning and the tax planning. And I do more of the guardianships and the benefits programs, benefit side of it.
Okay, guardianship. So that's kind of what I really want to focus on today. So I went through this when my son Robbie turned 18. I declared legal guardianship of him. And it's funny because I just saw somebody on one of the autism pages just ask this question. And I was like, oh man, I need to hurry up and record this episode so that when people ask these questions, I can play this episode for them and answer all of their questions. So they want to know, how is that done? How do they declare legal guardianship? What's involved in the process? What do they have to do? And I actually did all of this through you guys. Joe actually helped me declare legal guardianship with my son. So I know a little bit about it, but let's teach other people, especially those that have younger kids with autism. As they start getting older, people start telling them, you need to do this and you need to do that, and they get a little bit overwhelmed. So let's pretend that I am a mom of a, say, 16-year-old, and I know that, he's going to be 18 soon, and I'm coming to you as a potential client. Walk me through the process. I guess the first thing I would want to know is, what does that mean to declare legal guardianship?
Sure. Usually I would tell people when your child's getting closer to 18, about 6 months out, I encourage you to make a consultation with me or with Joe and come in, and we can sit down and we take some basic information, because we have to make this application to the court. So a guardianship, in case people don't know, a guardian is someone who is a substitute decision maker. So most kids,
I'm sorry, say that again because your voice trailed off.
Yeah, a guardian is a substitute decision maker. So what that means is when an individual turns 18, regardless of their abilities or capabilities, they're presumed to be of legal majority, their age. They're presumed to be an adult and capable of making their own decisions. We know that that's not always true. So when a child turns 18, if the child has special needs, the parents are going to want or need to be appointed their legal guardian. They need to be able to continue that parental role into that child's adulthood. So we help with that.
So an example would be, like, say, if they go to the doctor making medical decisions, or like what type of decisions would they potentially need to make?
It's really anything. So the guardianship covers two broad areas. You can be guardian of the child's person, which includes school, which includes job, which includes medical, any sort of day-to-day decision, that operations, treatments, all that sort of stuff. Doctors are not supposed to, unfortunately, work with the parent once that child turns 18. They're going to want to see that you are now their legal guardian. Otherwise, they're presumed to have capacity to be competent to make those types of decisions. The other portion is you can be also guardian of that child's property, meaning if they have bank accounts to deal with Social Security, if they're getting supplemental security income, they get gifting, there's trust involved, whatever. So the parents really have the ability to manage and take care of their child well into adulthood, taking care of them physically and medically, and also taking care of them financially. So it's critical because you're really not supposed to be able to make any decisions without it.
Right.
I know some doctors sometimes do, but that's really the exception. Banks will not once your child turns 18.
That banks
In
will
fact,
not.
they don't,
Yeah, what will
Yeah.
banks will not do what?
banks aren't really going to cooperate with you on behalf of that child unless you are their guardian.
Hmm.
So Social Security, et cetera.
Right. Do you know anything about the Social Security process, about how they would go about getting the SSI for their kid, or do you not get involved in that?
We do to an extent. I mean, we work with the parents, we get the application, we help them fill it out. We've provided it to Social Security, and then you wait and hear if they're granted the benefits or denied. And then you can then, if you're denied, you can file subsequent appeals or, reconsideration
Right.
of the decision.
Yeah, I remember being surprised that we could even get that, that, when he turns 18, he can just get Social Security, like, and he's never worked before. Like, I was so.
Yeah, you have to apply for it. You definitely need to meet the criteria, but most of the families of these kids, they do qualify.
Yeah.
Child will qualify.
Yeah. And
Occasionally they don't, but a lot of times they do.
it just helps with the overall expenses, just the living expenses.
Sure, it defrays costs, and it goes on. So it's nice that it's a continuing payment for this individual.
Mm-hmm.
Helps
Can you give
defray.
me an example of some types of things that could potentially go wrong if you did not declare guardianship? Like people could
Sure.
steal their money, or.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've had people in the past, it's kind of sad, but we've had families where someone is telling the daughter that they love them, that they want to marry them. And they're taking advantage because that individual had access to money. So, it's very difficult to kind of manage those types of relationships unless you have the guardianship. We also had a brother who took advantage of his disabled sibling by taking out credit cards in his name and using those credit cards and racking up the bills and, blaming the brother. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good people out there, but there's a lot of unscrupulous people out there. And I think that the point of the guardianship is to protect your child, is to protect your loved one. They're vulnerable, they're compromised. And, this is a way to really continue to make sure that they're protected into adulthood and that no one can take advantage of them.
Yeah. But I think also part of your job too is to protect them from other family members that would harm them too. I remember when I did this with Robbie, they found an attorney to be on Robbie's behalf. I remember going to his law office and sitting there one day, and I had to bring Robbie in, and it was more to protect Robbie, to make sure that I guess in my layman's terms would be to make sure that I'm not being dishonest and just trying to declare to be his legal guardian so I could just take all his money from him.
Sure. And I think maybe, Cindy, we should go back a little bit, because I think where we started was what's entailed in a guardianship. And I think when people come to me, that's really the first thing they want to know. What do I have to do to become guardian? And it goes through the court system. Mm-hmm. So that means we need to open up a case for say Robbie. We would need to open up a case for him. And we need to file a verified complaint. And that just lays out the reasons why, the background and the reasons why you want this guardianship. Probably the most critical piece of all in the proofs in this guardianship application are the 2 doctor certifications. You need 2 doctors, licensed doctors, preferably who know your son very well, who can attest and evaluate him that he does in fact need a guardian. And the standard is he can't take care of himself or manage his financial affairs. That's really what they're attesting to. So what does that mean? They're basically going to be speaking to how well does he communicate? Can he do simple mathematics? Is he able to dress himself? Is he able to feed himself? Is he able to appreciate danger? Does he have safety awareness? So all those types of things are going to come into that certification.
In my case, it was no, 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 and no.
Yeah, it's sad, but at least this is there, right? I mean, you recognize he needs help,
Right.
and he has challenges, and those challenges likely are not going to go away.
Right.
So this is a way to kind of enable you as a parent, to empower you to continue to care for him and make sure that he is well protected and no one's going to take advantage of him.
Right.
And also to get whatever benefits and entitlements he can to make his life better. So it's a great process. It is, though, you're kind of bringing up another good point. It is a choice of last resort. The courts don't automatically just want you to go to guardianship. So if your child has the ability to comprehend, a document such as a living will or a power of attorney, if they have enough ability, cognitive ability to do that, then that's where you would lead them, right? You would have them actually sign a living will or healthcare proxy and a financial power of attorney. So his healthcare and his finances would be taken care of. That presumes he's pretty high functioning and that he's able to execute those documents. Okay, well, if he's not able to do that, in Robbie's case, he wasn't. The next step up in protection is called the conservatorship. And in New Jersey, to get conservatorship, you need to go into court. And conservatorship is limited, though, to just his finances. So if you were appointed Robbie's conservator, you would have to just be able to take care of his finances, meaning he could be independent in his health care and his medical decisions, right? And Robbie actually would have to agree to that. He would have to agree to the conservatorship in New Jersey. So that's the second layer up. If he's not able to do that, or he needs help beyond just finances, then it's the guardianship. And the guardianship is an all-inclusive kind of umbrella to really help him. And it kind of goes, now the guardianship is all-inclusive, but believe it or not, you also can have a limited guardian. There's a general guardian and a limited guardian. A general guardian is probably what Robbie would have needed, everything, healthcare, day-to-day, school, medical, medicine, treatments, and he also would need the financial help. The limited is your child has the ability to maintain some independence in a particular area. So I call them carve-outs to the guardianship. And the typical carve-outs that people entertain are for voting. If you think your child could appreciate the voting process and understand it enough to cast a ballot, then we could say, yes, there's a guardianship, but he can still vote. There's also one for driving. Yeah, he needs the guardian, but if he can pass the written and the driving tests, any sort of driving test, if he can do that, then yes, he has a guardian, but he should be permitted to drive. And the last one is marriage. Believe it or not, that if they may need the guardian, but the parents want to carve out, they're allowed to carve out an exception to that their child could decide to marry on their own if they wanted to. Right. I will say in my 27 years of doing this, no one has ever carved out the marriage to date.
Oh, really?
I think the parents are very concerned that their child not be taken advantage of, by someone. So the most common one is voting. Is voting. People will carve out that exception.
Right.
So
yeah, as far as the marriage goes, I've seen both sides of that. I've seen a couple that they both had special needs and they both got married. They were in Summit years ago. I think it was even in the newspaper, and it was just the cutest thing. They were the sweetest couple.
Yeah.
But I've also seen, I know that a friend had a sister with special needs, and she was completely taken advantage of, like you said, by some man 20, 30 years older than her, married her, I think got her pregnant first, and then married her. And I think he didn't work and he just wanted her money. And it was just an awful awful situation. So
Yeah, it's very sad because these individuals are trusting. They're
Yeah.
trusting, and a lot of them really obey authority.
Mhm.
So, they're a very, very vulnerable group. But I agree with you. I mean, I actually do have clients that are married.
Mhm.
They're married, and they're both have special needs, and it's a wonderful relationship for them.
Mhm.
But that's only one that I have. The majority, I think parents really want to protect the child from people who might want to harm them.
Right. And then I think we had talked about this earlier, that just because you're a guardian doesn't mean that you have to make every single decision for them. It doesn't mean you're in total control of their life. It's just, if you need it type of a thing.
Yeah, I think some parents are kind of surprised because I think there's sometimes like a general misinformation going around, that I've had parents come in and say to me, like, I don't want to pick what he's wearing every day.
Right.
I don't want to tell him what he has to eat. I don't want it. And the guardianship is a wonderful tool because it's really up to the guardian themselves. So you, for instance, as the mom of Robbie, and if you're the guardian, you could decide, okay, he has enough ability to pick out his clothes. He has enough ability to decide what he wants to eat. He has enough ability, to even maybe put an input in where he wants to go to school, or, who his friends are. You don't need to micromanage if the child is capable of making and retaining some of that independence. And that's really the nice part about the guardianship. You decide as the parent, as the person who loves this child the most, how much freedom he gets, how much, authority he has to self-determine what he's doing. But otherwise, all important decisions and the final decision always rests with you. So he can't be taken advantage of, or maybe make a decision that isn't good for himself, even though he may think it's good. It's not. So you can protect him.
Yeah, I'm also wondering of some other things, like, for instance, when Robbie was in a group home, the staff didn't know how to handle him, and they called the police on him. And I showed up, and they were taking him out in handcuffs, and they took him to Trinitas, to behavior hospital. And I'm just thinking, if I wasn't around, like I was there and I showed up, and I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that I was his guardian, but then they released him to me. But I'm wondering if I didn't have guardianship and they were waiting for him to make his own decisions, then he would be fully responsible for legally, because I've had a mom that called me one time that they put her son in jail. And I was like, how can you put somebody with special needs like that in jail and treat him like, like any other person? He didn't know, they don't understand what they're doing, like they're having a meltdown and they attack somebody, and then they come out of it and they have no idea. They don't even remember what they just did.
Yeah, but you got to remember too, that your child better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, the group home, that's a different story. But if your child gets into trouble, at a local CVS or somewhere, in public, they don't know him. And unless there's a guardian appointed, they are presumed to be an adult, and they are presumed to be in control of their decisions. So it's really up to the parent to kind of step forward and say, wait a minute, not in this case. He really doesn't appreciate what he's doing. He really doesn't have the intention to do that.
Right.
And, he's more likely to be victimized than to be a victim.
Right.
So that guardianship is really key to protect you and to protect him from things like that happening.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking, because this mom that called me that her son was in jail, I'm thinking, well, if she had already gone through this process, if she had the doctors already declare that he's incapacitated and she was his legal guardian and everything, then I think she would have a leg to stand on and say, hey, he's not, you can't treat him like other people because it's not the same,
It's true. You're putting a layer of insulation with that guardianship. Mm-hmm. Whether it's you're talking about the police, whether someone takes a credit card out in his name, like happened in one of my cases, you're insulating them from responsibility because they're not considered, in the eyes of the law to be an adult.
Mhm.
They're still under your protection and control. They're actually called the ward. Robbie would be your ward. So they can't, be prosecuting him, or, you need to be, you're the eyes, you're the voice, you are everything for Robbie, and the guardianship makes sure of that. So he can't get, thank goodness, in trouble on his own.
Right.
It's got to go through you.
Right. Right. And then let's talk about, wills and things like that. I know that's more Joe's thing, but I'm just thinking about someday when I wasn't here anymore, I would have named my daughters as his legal guardians afterwards. So when does that come into play, when you have to think about that?
Well, I mean, generally, we're kind of a law firm. We're not a one and done type law firm. Like you end up considering our clients extended family. We really kind of have a long-term relationship with them. So it may start when the child is little and they do their wills, their estate planning, their powers of attorney, living wills, and you include a special needs trust. And that really is a little bit more Joe's area, but that's where it begins. You're planning through that document and documents to really protect them in the event you pass. You want to make sure financially and physically that they're protected, and you can do that through those documents. Once they turn 18, then you also want to get the guardianship to ensure, while you're living, that you can take care of them properly.
Mm-hmm.
So we also do other types of work. I mean, you mentioned the SSI, the supplemental security income. We have a network of people that we've, come into contact with, that we've developed relationships with. So there's usually, there's a whole host of things that people may encounter, like a special college program. There's more and more special college programs for special needs young adults. So we know plenty of people who've gone through them. If people want to talk to other people, I've connected them. If there's benefits in the community that maybe they could avail themselves of, we can kind of facilitate all of that. So it's kind of an ongoing relationship from those wills to the guardianship, to SSI, to maybe workability. That's a program that maybe people don't know about, to other sorts of benefits that their child may be entitled to. And I'm not saying I know everything, but I know enough. I know a great deal about my area, but I also can connect them to people if it's a little bit outside of my area.
Right. Yeah. Well, when you do this for so long, you just start, meeting people within their space.
You do. And the families are terrific. The families are always offering. If you know somebody who's going through this, you feel free to give them my email or give them my phone number. I mean, they're very receptive to kind of passing on the information they learned and making sure that people aren't going back to square one,
right,
and trying to figure it out on their own, which is wonderful.
Right. So let's go back to the process, because I don't know if we finished. So you have to get, you get the notes from 2 doctors, right? I mentioned I needed to have an attorney that represented Robbie. And then I do remember going to court. We had to sit in court and the judge had to make a decision. Is there anything more to the process that I forgot? Because this was a long time ago for me.
Well, there's other paperwork that needs to go with it. So the verified complaint attaches the 2 doctor certifications.
Mm-hmm.
And there's timing rules with all that, which we don't need to get into, but there's also a case information statement, an affidavit of assets, a proposed form of order. So you kind of get all those papers together and you file it. And then the judge is going to give you a signed order back with a date that you're going to be heard, that your case will be heard. And he also, or she, in that order, does appoint an attorney for your child. So Robbie would have his independent attorney who works just for Robbie and who is responsible to report back just for Robbie. Nothing to do with the parent. Doesn't matter what you want or what your husband might want. He is just looking from Robbie's perspective, and he files a report to that effect. Once all those papers are in, then yes, you can go to court. Although right now we're not going. You know, we don't go, we haven't physically been in court in a good while since COVID. So we do a
But
lot
you do
by
it on
phone.
Zoom. Don't you do it
We
on
do,
Zoom?
yeah, some judges do it by Zoom. You know, Cindy, it's funny because they run the gamut. Some judges want it by Zoom in certain counties. Some judges don't even need the video. They just want phone and the phone calls recorded.
Mhm.
Or they're doing them on the papers, meaning there's no court appearance necessary at all, which personally I feel is really appropriate and is maybe a good thing that's come out of COVID, because when a child is profoundly disabled since birth,
Mhm.
and I don't even understand why they would ever think you would need to go to court for this. You
Yeah.
know, they should just put it through. If two doctors are certifying and then your own child's attorney is saying, listen, you know, the person's nonverbal or they're not able to communicate in any way, you know, they're confined to bed, they're, you know, whatever it is, if it's pretty serious,
Mhm.
I think the courts are becoming a little more sensitive to the fact that you really don't need to drag these parents in there and make them defend why they're asking to be guardians.
Yeah,
So-
why they're trying to take care of their child.
Yeah.
I know,
they
I
have
was
to-
really nervous about it because, you know, you got to go into the city, you know, you got to park blocks away sometimes, you know, and then go sit and wait in line. And it's this foreign environment, and it's all, everything adds up to, for a child with severe autism, you're looking at a potential meltdown. You know, it's like,
Well,
why are you
you know
making
what?
us do this?
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, that is one thing that the parents will ask me all the time, you know, does my child have to go? Does Robbie have to go to court actually?
Mhm.
And the answer is the court would like the child to go. If
Mhm.
the child is capable, and I've had one or two kids who were very excited to go.
Mhm.
They were, you know, their disability was such, they were happy. They wanted to meet the judge. They had pictures taken with the judge.
Oh,
So
cute.
that's, yeah, it was sweet. And that was more of, you know, an uplifting event. And that child was fully capable of handling the courtroom and was looking forward to it.
Mhm.
But that is not the vast majority of kids. They don't want to go.
Mhm.
They're going to be nervous. The sensory is going to be overload,
Right.
the lights, the
Right.
whole bit.
Sure. And even
The
just
judge
taking them
up
out
at-
of school and their routine, just the whole thing.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. So the judges, I think over time have become very, very sensitive to that. So I don't know if they made Robbie go to court at that time.
I don't remember.
Back.
I remember
But
being
they
nervous
would,
about
they
it, but I
would,
don't know if he went.
yeah, I don't know any judge that would make him go at
Mhm.
this point. So the preference is to have the child stay in their day program, do what they're supposed to do, don't disrupt their routine, and just have the parents appear by Zoom, or we said by phone call, or even not at all. So I think that's a nice alternative. And I think parents sometimes are very afraid of that the child will act out, that the
Mhm.
child's gonna throw themselves on the floor, or they're gonna, you know, they're gonna be upset, or, you know, you don't know what's gonna happen
Mhm.
until you get there. So I think it's nice that they're eliminating that stress and that pressure for the parents.
Right. Right. Okay.
So once they assign that attorney and the attorney does the report and we go to court, it's very short. Even the phone calls, they're under 15 minutes. They're very fast. And then the judge makes his or her ruling right there on the phone or in the Zoom. And then the guardianship is granted.
Mhm. Good. Yeah, you make it sound so easy. It actually was. I mean, it really was. For me, it was painless. It was the only thing that I was nervous about was going to court.
You
So-
know, and I try and tell people, and so far, knock on wood, everyone has always agreed. The court we go into for these guardianships is wonderful. The judges are all very sensitive. They're wonderful people. They're just, it's a warm environment. It is not like you're going to other areas of the courthouse. This is a special place and a special environment that I think that they create to make everybody feel welcome. It
Mhm.
is not, I think the idea of court scares people, but I try to tell them, I promise you, even if you physically have to go to that courtroom,
Mhm.
it's gonna be in some ways enjoyable. Like you're not gonna be afraid the minute you get there and you see that judge.
Right. Right. You're not on trial.
No, and I think that I think that the judges, for the most part, really try to make you feel welcome. They're very, a lot of them can, if the child appears, they'll get on that kid's level. They'll really try and relate to the ward. So it's nice. It's very nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
But most of the time, not necessary. Most of the time that the parents would be going by themselves. And then I tell people, it's the thing about the guardianship is you're just putting a formality. You're making it a legal arrangement for something that is already existing. I mean, you are taking care of Robbie. You're doing everything for him. You're making every decision for him. This is just saying, all right, the court acknowledges that, and we're making it a formal arrangement. That's all it is.
Right. Okay, Jane, thank you for being here. I would like everyone to know just how they can get in touch with you if they need you or your services. Sure. Tell them
Sure.
Your office is in New Providence.
Yes, our office is right in New Providence in Union County. And our office number is 908-286-1136. And I'm extension 2.
Oh, there you go.
So
And
if
then
anybody would like
an
information.
email or phone call, what's the easiest way?
Either one is fine. My email is my name. It's Jane, JANEC @Tiboni, TIBONI.com.
That's easy. JaneC@Tiboni.com. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us and enlightening us on this subject. And I hope that was helpful to some parents to see, don't sweat it. It's really not a difficult process. And now they know who they can call and they can get it taken care of.
Yeah, we're happy to help people through it. We know it's a little daunting, but we've been doing it a long time and we're happy to help.
Okay,
So.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.